Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we move on to the CXO's dialogue titled Automation Business Landscape Across Industry Segments, Growth, Resilience, and Operational Efficiency. It's an honor and privilege to first introduce the members of this CXO's dialogue. Alok Bansal, Managing Director and Global Head of BFSI Business at Visionet Systems. Shankar V, Chief Information Officer at TVS Sundaram Clayton. Narendra Agrawal, Global Chief Information Officer at Dabur India. This session will be moderated by Hari Prasad Gajapati, Regional Head, Intelligent Automation at PwC India. Hari, the virtual floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ivan, for the introductions. Much appreciated. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Economic Times Intelligent Automation Summit 2021. It gives me immense pride and honor to be part of this event and this esteemed panel. A very warm welcome to our panelists and participants. It's great to have you among us. As mentioned by Ivan, the theme for this panel is Automation Business Landscape Across Industry Segments. All right, it'll be great to hear from each one of you on how automation has impacted the growth, resilience, and operational efficiencies for organizations, and also insights on some of the challenges that they could face in this transformation journey. All right, so here's how we're going to break the session into 3 distinct sessions. I'll set the tone for the session to start with, and we will then have and want to know each one of your perspectives, followed by a Q&A session, and I will feed in the audience questions real time if possible, else we'll park it to a later stage. On that note, let me just get things started with some insights from an annual global CEO survey that I came across on emerging technology trends and its impacts on business. Right? I'd like to call out 4 key findings from the survey that resonate with the thought process that CXOs across organizations are currently contemplating or will start to contemplate. So the first one of them being 85% of the CEO population in that survey agreed that intelligent automation and artificial intelligence will significantly change the way they do business in the next 5 years. 77% of the CEOs considered digitization and operational efficiencies to drive growth, confirming an inside-out growth strategy. Right? And whilst they were very optimistic on adoption of these automation and digitization strategies, 55% of the CEOs felt that the lack of availability of key talent has impacted their ability to innovate and grow effectively, right? And they feel, that significant upskilling and adopting new ways of working will help bridge that skill gap. And 88% of the CEOs agreed that their existing IT security, process governance, risk control matrices, etc., will need to be revisited to be able to support the digital transformation strategy. Now, these insights kind of resonate with some of the discussion points that we will touch upon as we progress during the session. But overall, automation promises to change the face of business, and introducing new technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics process automation, optical character recognition, conversation automations with chatbots and voice bots, amongst a whole host of others, are now part of a solid business strategy. And key advantages that come from these technologies include increased productivity, accelerated growth, higher rates of production, better quality, and more importantly in these days, efficient and seamless customer service. Right now, these levers and business drivers for automation could vary with industries. And given these technologies are becoming a mainstay, we will see a major shift in how businesses operate with the adoption of automation in the near future. Right? 4 key changes that I would want to bring to the table. First one of them being digitization and process standardization. That will gain more importance to further fuel the automation adoption. Right? As aptly mentioned by I think Dr. Sorry, my bad. I just forgot to recollect the name. But I think in the initial session where the speakers also before spoke about how digitization is key and digital first should be the main strategy. This will become more important, right? And more so, this has been amplified in the recent times with the onset of the pandemic. Um, and so, therefore, digitization of data, digitization of business operations, customer and supply chain interactions, and digitization of the workforce will become key to succeed and transition from a traditional enterprise into an intelligent enterprise. Um, Beg your pardon, I now recollect the name. It was Dr. Rajendra Kumar, the Minister of Electronics and Information Technology, who mentioned, digital first should be the main strategy. So that's what the first change. Second change we look at is, the robots will become co-workers. They already are, but then, creating a digital workforce that represents the whole new operational, highly scalable, reliable, and auditable work capability for businesses. And they will further propel the growth of an organization, significantly impacting the cost, quality, efficiency, and speed to service. The third change is the new ways of working, right? And upskilling will be the key for the future workforce. Now, while obsolete skill sets are pushing people out of jobs at a faster pace, with the adoption of automation, employers are simultaneously struggling to hire and retain the right talent. The way forward will be to ensure that the discrepancy between the skills that they already have and those needed for the jobs in the digital world will need to be addressed. Blue collared and white collared jobs may be at risk from an automation standpoint, but then automation will definitely create a demand for new collared jobs. So the ways of working will definitely change. Lastly, the digital workforce governance, information security, cyber security, all of these capable of building a resilient and future-proof company will take shape to address all the risks that would arise with this human-led, technology-driven transformation journey. On that note, I'd like to open this up to our esteemed panelists to present their views on how automation has impacted and changed the business landscape. What's interesting here is the mix of industry sectors they represent. Alok primarily from the BFSI side of things, Narendra from the FMCG side, and then Shankar, who's been a veteran in the industry, having worked across IT and manufacturing sectors. All right, so it'll be great to get your insights and looking forward to hear your perspectives. At first, I want to call upon Alok to share his views on how automation has impacted the overall business landscape.
Thank you, Hari. You very well captured the essence of the topic. Thanks, ETH, for making me part of this esteemed platform to share my thoughts on this very interesting area of intelligent automation, and along with my fellow industry panelists, Narendra and Shankar. This pandemic has brought a paradigm shift in the consumer behavior. And according to several leading surveys, global adoption of digital technologies has grown many times in the last 1 year alone, which otherwise would have taken 6 to 7 years. Today, businesses are becoming smarter, intelligent, and more digitally connected. So digital transformation has not only become a survival tool today, but also a catalyst for long-term sustainability and growth. Research indicates that market for automation enabling technologies will reach close to 600 billion by 2022, and nearly 82% of companies operating in the APAC region are expected to implement data-driven strategies in a bid to enhance their operational capabilities within the next half decade. As organizations look for ways to automate, the digitization and structuring of data and content technologies, such as signature verification tools, optical character recognition, document ingestion, conversational AI, and natural language technologies will be in high demand. Some of the examples which are common examples include self-driving cars, self-checkouts at stores, smart home assistants, and the smart appliances. On the B2B side, use cases also include applying data and machine learning to build predictive analytics that react to consumer behavioral changes, and implementing automation to streamline operations on a manufacturing floor. While automation is adopted across various sectors, a few industries have taken the lead. Industries like banking and finance, insurance, healthcare, and retail are topping the charts. Together, these industries account for 66% of the automation spend overall. Now, just to give you some use cases, for instance, in the banking and insurance companies, they need to deal with multiple queries and huge data handling every day, right from application status to balancing inquiry. And it gets difficult for banks to respond with low turnaround time with a high accuracy. So here, automation with NLP and AI can provide better customer service, and it can respond like a human in a lesser time. Similarly, OCR with machine learning makes the data-intensive processes highly efficient and less error-prone. So there are several other use cases in KYC, especially fraud detection, general ledger management, which leads to improved efficiency in huge data handling and accuracy rates. So automation also enables analyzing vast amount of data and translate them into actionable insights. Like in banking and financial services companies, insurance companies are also using data-driven automation in practically at every stage of policy administration to servicing. So similar to banking and financial services segment, automation has become one of the best ways of improving service delivery in the retail sector. It is said that in a decade, the share of predictable manual jobs such as driving, packing, shelf stocking, these kind of jobs will substantially decline and will be taken up by the robots. Jobs that will remain will tend to be concentrated in high value customer service, management, technology deployment, and maintenance. Intelligent automation also has immense potential in the healthcare management. A report by the Institute of Health Technology Transformation says that automation makes population health management not only feasible, but makes it scalable and sustainable, as this enables utilization management, case management, care coordination, and remote monitoring of patients with the smart healthcare systems. Apart from the several use cases in the different industry segments, automation has a direct impact on the job satisfaction. It comes with all the potential to cut repetitive jobs and free employees for value-added work. As I earlier mentioned, in a decade or so, demand for all physical and manual skills for basic data input and processing will significantly decline, while there will be growth in demand for interpersonal skills, creativity, and empathy. Along with it, advanced IT skills and programming, alongside complex information processing skills, will also see a surge in demand. Having said this, there are startling facts. For instance, a recent report by EY mentions that as many as 30 to 50% of automation projects fail in the initial stage itself. So hence, there needs to be a digital strategy and roadmap for execution in place. The org cultures must be relooked for higher adoption of technology. Leadership needs to be aligned. And just to summarize, a successful automation initiative requires a sound business strategy along with sufficient finance and, the most important, the people alignment. These are some of my thoughts. Thanks for the time and the opportunity.
No worries, Alok. We won't let you go easy. We will have, I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions coming your way. But very well summarized in terms of what is currently happening from an automation standpoint, and what organizations need to look for in terms of preparedness. On that note, I'll now call upon Shankar to share your views on the topic.
Thank you, Hari, and really interesting to note Alok's thought process, because exactly what I have been seeing in where I currently am and in my previous assignments in the manufacturing and other segments. See, today, what is also happening is manufacturing, especially the automobile industry, is going through tremendous metamorphosis, simply because of the fact that EVs are coming in and they are going to be a game changer. And EV technology coming in means that traditional methods of manufacturing that we know are going to, diminish in terms of the scope and in volumes. And this is going to happen over the next 5 to 7 year horizon. And what is also happening is, and as you connect the dots between what's happening in the manufacturing space, the absorption of technology, the changing technology, you are taking away more and more moving parts out of a vehicle and putting them with, electric parts. The ability to predict quality, the ability to predict the performance of the material, all these things come into play in a dramatic manner. And automation is playing a big role in the game changer, both in terms of the process and in the data part of it. And I'm talking about in the direct areas, and the indirect areas. The industry is pushing towards an area where ability to predict the quality of parts that are made, the assembly actually is going to be very limited. But the core material, the structure of material, everything is going to be very, very different in the days to come. An electric vehicle has a very less number of parts that are built upon it, and it's more integrated one. So the ability to replace something is going to be, to keep it running is going to be difficult for beginning. So you need to have your design right from the beginning. So that's where technology comes in. It's one aspect of it is the engineering part of it. The other aspect is the technology part of it, where you need to have a huge amount of traceability coming in into what is going into the vehicle, and that's also mandated by regulations in Europe, America, and everywhere in India. But also the fact that you need the traceability to make sure that you have got all your parameters that are coming into vehicles manufacturing right from the beginning. Otherwise, you are not going to go to the market.
Right.
Right? And today we are seeing, companies like and Qatar and and the big manufacturers coming in with EV two-wheelers, right? And it's going to be a very intense, very competitive market. The second is where the data and automation comes in is the ability to predict where these EVs are going to be running, what the charging points you need, or what is the capacity that you need of these charging points. Uh, you know, these vehicles are going to be connected, and the whole ecosystem is going to pick up a huge volume of data that these vehicles are going to throw at them. And again, the vehicle performances are also going to be connected to a lot of analytics that is coming in. So, where I'm going with this is that there is going to be a level of automation that sits at the back end of all this, that builds in the intelligence that is needed to track the vehicle performance and ability to predict how the performance is going to flow through a certain period of time. Having said that, that is a big opportunity for the entire industry, and that's where it's going to go. And classic example for all this is Tesla, right? The level of sophistication is probably the gold standard right now, but everybody is going to follow that. And it opens up the realms of capabilities of automation that we can see, whether it is cognitive intelligence or conversational intelligence. All these things are going to be soon moving into a commodity space because the ability to have them as a consumer from a consumer standpoint is capacity is huge.
Mm.
That's the plus side of it. When there is a put, there is also a take, right? And the other side of it is our organizations ready for this. That is where I see the challenge today. The key to successful adoption and deployment of automation is the ability to have an effective data management and governance in place, right? Starting from the data repositories and how we clinically analyze the data that is coming in, the data quality. That
Mm.
will, that is not paid full attention to. This is cuts across the unless companies put in significant amount of time, money to cleanse the quality of data that is coming in and make sure that is in a structured manner. Any downstream, interpretation or utilization of the data is going to have its own challenges. It is not going to be 100%
Mhm.
efficient. So I think to put the house in order, there has to be a strong focus on data management and governance. I'm not saying that people don't do it. Companies, enterprises are doing it, but the degree to which it needs to be done for it to have an efficient and strong uptick on what is going to be the trend in the ecosystem, that needs to be well understood, and well invested in going forward. So that's my key thought, Hari. That's what I say to this panel. With that, I hand it back to Hari.
Great, great. Thanks, Shankar. Just one key phrase that I really liked is, get your house in shape, right? And I believe that's definitely going to be one of the first things that any organization would have to do before they blindly start adopting, automation as one of their strategic drivers, right? Because eventually, at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, if you don't have information that is digitally available or digitized, and if you don't have the right set of governances, things will fall apart at some point in time or the other. Sustenance becomes a challenge over a period of time.
And added to that is also the infrastructure to support the huge volume of data that is going to be thrown at you. So these are two key things, as you rightly said, putting the house in order that needs to be addressed while we address the automation side of things. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Shankar. Narendra, keen to hear your views. I mean, having heard Alok and Shankar speak, both from different perspectives from an industry standpoint. Primarily on the FMCG bit, there's a lot of things happening, and Alok, Shankar, both of them mentioned about how data is going to help and the aspects of predictive analysis and so on and so forth. So keen to hear from you in terms of how you feel automation has changed the overall business landscape from an FMCG standpoint.
Yeah. Thanks, Hari. Firstly, between what you talked about, and it was very comprehensive, to then Alok coming in giving a good external perspective, to then Mr. Shankar really what I would say giving the realities of the industry. Put together, I think it's been a very comprehensive discussion. I'm actually now afraid a lot of my points might sound repetitive. But what I'll try to do is give a color of what does it mean from a CPG lens and what does it mean from my own experience, how I've seen this whole evolution work. So first of all, in the whole world of CPG, there's been massive disruption that is happening in the entire ecosystem. What do I mean by this? With a lot of B2B players coming, with the whole construct of marketplace coming in, with a lot of logistics as a service offering coming in, with the whole consumer ecosystem evolving, and how they are absorbing now digital as a means for engaging with brands has meant that the traditional strengths that your CPG organizations or your FMCG organizations have had for a very long time are dramatically changing in these times. So, like it or not, there are a lot of these external factors which will be driving these organizations to drive digitization. And I think, in my experience, the leadership has understood this very loud and clear, and are very strategically been looking at these areas of digitization, including automation, to ensure not only are we catching up, but we are actually ahead of the curve on this journey. Yeah. And that's what I try to touch upon, when I talk about automation. So firstly, when I look at automation, for me, it's really a two-part thing. Automation is what's really in your face automation through chatbots and all of those things. And then automation that sits under the hood, either through a lot of these application interfaces that, your stakeholders, be it a consumer, customers that are interacting with, who then are able to get a very robust experience and a value for the money through the underneath automation, the native automation that you're building in, right? And in that lens, how the whole CPG industry at least is evolving is one, especially from a customer lens. Automation has become a big growth lever. How a customer sees, growth opportunity is how rapidly and effectively he or she is able to circulate the investments they have in the entire business ecosystems. So right from giving them visibility around how the churn is happening, right from enabling them with an ability to drive more real-time, settlements or payments. For example, the traditional manual claims to now automating the entire mechanism of settling those claims so that the money they've invested comes back to them as quickly as possible so that they can reinvest this into their forward journey. To then what we call as the predictive analytics, to actually giving them a sight of how the next week to the next month to possibly the next quarter, if not the next year, is going to look like. Where is the business evolving, what's going to sell more, and where the huge revenue opportunities will come, what sort of, say, promotions you could run or schemes that can be enabled that can drive this growth, I think then helps the customer to drive those investments very effectively, right? So this is one example of how automation is truly driving growth. And a lot of these places, wherever automation has actually been enabled, we've seen that value coming. And what COVID has done, we talk about how consumer, behavior has changed dramatically over the last period of maybe a couple of years. I'd like to put it as, the behaviors were always evolving. Consumers getting a lot more intelligent, consumers getting a lot more demanding. I speak of it myself as a consumer. There's high expectations when you're investing or putting your money into brands. There's not just about the product in itself, which of course remains fundamental, but it's also about the brand you're putting your money in, especially with your Gen Z and millennial consumers. What COVID has done is, accelerated this whole behavioral change tremendously. If there was a gradual shift towards digital media, if there was a gradual shift towards getting a personalized message in what was accumulating as a lot of noise in the ecosystem, a brand noise, I think now that has accelerated maybe for 7, 8, 10 years in this last couple of years, right? And I think that's where there's been a sudden thrust and a realization that we got to step up how we are engaging with consumers, because you cannot anymore just depend on physical connects with consumers, which anyways, even in the traditional model, couldn't have happened very effectively. But now what has happened is the affinity to connect digitally has become a reality and been adopted very well. So it's in fact become an opportunity now, being able to connect with the consumers directly. So when you talk about D2C, for example, it's a fabulous opportunity not only to sell your products to the consumers directly, but it's a much larger opportunity to engage with your consumers, understand their behaviors, understand what they're looking for, and all of this is possible because you're automating that journey for the consumers. You're automating the journey of how you are engaging with certain platforms, to how you're digitizing the payments, how you are digitizing the fulfillment of their products that you're providing to them. So these are some of the few external areas, I'd say, where there has been a shift change externally, and how technology has actually turned a lot of these into opportunity areas as we work.
Right. Right.
Internally, of course, and I think internally has become a more tried and tested area where you can drive a lot of efficiencies by driving a lot of automation. And I know, and it's a reality, we keep talking about workforce and the risks that it brings to the workforce. The lens I would want to apply, and I definitely look at industry also to apply, our external partners also to apply, is how we are able to then leverage the same workforce, reskill the same workforce, restructure the role profiles that we've traditionally had, to use them into more effective areas of partnering, engaging, where real human intelligence, human value, human empathy is required, which I definitely don't feel automation at any point of time can fully enable, right? And I think that's where the true new value of workforce. It's a very traditional sort of debate we had when computers were coming, and there was this huge fear psychosis that computers will take away our jobs. But the reality is, overall employment has only increased because opportunities in the industry has overall increased. It's just that the skilling, the traditional skills have definitely evolved, and the role profiles have dramatically changed. And I think this is again this wave. I'm sure not everybody has all the answers, but I think a lot of effort and inputs is going into how you are ensuring you are actually upskilling your workforce for future. You're not waiting for a technology to come in, but you're actually proactively start doing it. And I think that can be one of the big levers to preventing some of these early failures that we see in automation. It has to go a bit of hand in hand, where you do upskilling, and hence you expect your workforce, your people, employees, and all step up to the journey that is happening. Equally, you leverage technology as a disruption, and hence make it as a catalyst to drive a lot of these, recalibrations that we're looking at. So I think internal ecosystem, that's how I've seen at least evolving in the industry, definitely. From a reality or the challenge aspect of it, definitely one of the fundamental challenges come is in terms of this whole psychosis of lack of control. When you as a human being were doing a certain set of activities, you were in complete control, and hence you knew what you were doing. When you give it to a bot or a system to do this, you're really looking at the input and the output. What goes behind becomes a black box, and hence it creates a bit of a lack of control, and hence a bit of a lack of trust, which builds a bit of psychosis. So how do you address that is also critical. It'll come with evolution, it'll come with training, it will come with a lot of awareness with the help of our external partners. Equally, it will come with how technology also steps up, because not in all areas today technology is fully evolved. It's a journey. So it's very important to find those spots, and be very, very conscious as to where you're putting your money as far as automation goes. So that I think is a challenge area which we definitely go through, and something we got to address as we go through the journey.
Great. Awesome. I think well summarized again, Narendra. What's heartening to listen to is similar themes and common themes around how data-driven automation will start impacting the way businesses operate, how workforce upskilling is required, because I mean, it's not always technology, right? You'll need that human touch for the technology to work as well at some point in time, and also the fact of the lack of control, which if you don't have the resilience towards adoption of automation and continuation, becomes an issue from an ongoing business perspective. So I mean, absolutely valid points from all three of you. There's one question that's come from the audience group, which kind of resonates to Narendra, Alok, and Shankar. So you also mentioned in terms of how workforce becomes important. So the question pretty much ties around human facilitation is also important while you have a business strategy, and I guess we've kind of answered it in your own way while you were giving your views. So I wouldn't delve deep into that. But what I do want to ask though is, for example, Alok, question to you to start with, and I'm happy for Narendra, Shankar to also do chip in with the answer. But Alok, one thing interesting I did find is as part of when I looked up your profile, you are driving a campaign called Unnati for India. Now, this is a campaign that plans to train 1 lakh graduates over the next 5 years, equipping them on aspects of business process management, decoding digital transformation, artificial intelligence, NLP, and so on and so forth. It's really great, awesome initiative. So, in your view, why do you think people or staff are an important factor in an organization's automation or digital growth journey, right? And more so, when do you think people need to be involved? Is it at the beginning? Is it somewhere midway once you've set up the concept, or people should come in only as a stopgap just to provide views and so on and so forth? So I'm keen to hear from you, because pretty interesting, when I read about that campaign. You're on mute, Alok. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks, Hari. Thanks for asking this question, because I always put people first before technology, though I'm kind of running a technology company. See, as I earlier mentioned, that as many as 30 to 50% of automation projects fail in the initial stage. And contrary to the popular belief, digital transformation is less about technology and more about people.
Mm-hmm.
Human beings are the single most common denominator to the concept of future proofing. Simple things like application of technology for remote working, managing business resilience to navigate through a crisis like we are going through, or even driving operational efficiencies needs elements of creativity, curiosity, and innovative bent of mind. So this is how we can prepare for an even better digital future. And I call it people, skills, change, and act. And you can give an acronym PSCA. So let's talk about people first, right? So we need to put people first. The creative aspect of innovation is entirely dependent on people. When leaders think about investing in technology, they should first think about investing in the people who can make this technology useful. Then comes the skills. So we need to focus on soft skills. As we all know that today, the technology recruitment market is at its peak today. However, there is a bigger need for people who can be trained in the next wave of IT skills, which is generally ignored. And this is where, Hari, you mentioned about our program, Unnati for India, is actually targeting to make people skilled for the next generation of technology innovations and the needs for the service industry. So in my view, the best way to make your organization more data-centric and digital is to selectively invest in those who are most adaptable, curious, and flexible to learn. Nobody knows that what the key future hard skills will be. So the best action is to bet on the people who have high learnability and curiosity.
Right.
And the third point, as I mentioned, the change, the drive, the change from the top. The single most important factor in determining whether your automation initiative is going to be successful is the CEO or the head of the firm. So needless to say, everything in business can be copied except for talent. So if you're looking for the real impact, do invest in top talent, which is where you will get the most value. And final point that I mentioned of my acronym PSCA is ACT. Make sure you're acting on the data insights. So much of the current discussion is focused on AI, machine learning, NLP, etc. But a much bigger competitive advantage is to harness the vast amount of valuable data and having the necessary skills to translate that data into meaningful insights. And if you see, some of the most valuable companies today have a common element. They have data-driven culture. They live, breathe, and act on the data.
Right. Great. Thanks for that. Alok. Any viewpoints, Narendra, Shankar, that you may want to add to that question?
There is one point that resonates from what Alok and Narendra mentioned, and that is culture of change. Right? Organizations need to go through transform themselves and change to living and managing in the digital way. And many organizations today are not completely equipped for it because it kind of challenges individual fiefdoms or kingdoms, as you might put it, because in the old world, having access to data was seen as quote unquote power in a certain way. And digital transformation is really challenging a lot of that. And how do you break that, and how do you bring in a culture that embraces organization and as Alok just mentioned, managing with data, being a data-driven organization, that's also going to be a key driver in this journey. And how effective organizations who manage this well are going to be very successful.
Right. Great. Thanks for that. I mean, given we've spoken about data for a while, right, and how data-driven automation could become the future. Narendra, coming from an industry that is backed by a wealth of data, right? Do you see a shift in strategy where this data, if it will be primarily driven, to change the automation strategies over a period of time? How do you see that digital disruption happening in terms of automation having to impact the end customer experience while you internally drive productivity and efficiency?
Okay. I'm just thinking how to frame it. So of course, it has always been that data is very important. I think what has started happening over the last 4 or 5 years is the evolution of technology in a way that we are now able to actually not just capture that data, but actually churn that data out to drive insights. Because one of the fundamental challenges we've had for a long time is there's a lot of data out there, but how do I make that data support me, guide me in the entire decision making process? So I think one of the big shifts now that is happening is the data is actually available in insights, because data in itself cannot do anything. It's the insights that you generate from this data that really brings value to the business. And if not, it will not replace the decision making process, but it definitely augments the entire decision making process and dilutes the traditional intuition, which is what leaders were heavily reliant on while making any decisions, right? So there's a lot of backing up course correction that is provided with data. What automation has done is, traditionally automation has been around, there are these set of processes which are SOP led, and you put in a bot, and the bot then does the step 1, step 2, step 3, right?
Right.
That's how traditional automation has been, and that's how a lot of low hanging efficiencies have come in. The new age automation, and hence the whole front end automation is now coming because of this whole joined up evolution we are seeing with automation and with data and analytics, right? Because now you can do more cognitive automation. So for example, if I'm talking about a chatbot, it's no longer just a very traditional sort of chatbot, where there are 5 options, and how a standard SMS used to work. You click 1, you get this, you click 2, you get this. Now it definitely is, and it does feel a lot more responsive and a lot more real time, in conversational, definitely in how you're engaging. So for example, my salesman on the ground, uh, till before he had to rely for end of day coming back to office, opening up a portal, putting in those numbers, and then seeing whether he's met those targets, not met those targets, and even then he just knew how he's doing. Now whilst he's on the field, what automation has enabled is, on a chat he can tell, how am I performing, and I can actually in the back end process the data and give him insights, saying you've done 10 stores, you've got so many to go, and you're really doing well, because you're above the run rate that you're expected to do. And you can then use these opportunities to start nudging him also. When your backend has a lot of these algorithms, you say, if you're going to this store, why are you not selling this? It just sort of gives him those reminders and becomes a guide for the salesman now to actually drive sales more effectively, rather than being a little brute force. What it also brings is, because now data and automation have all started coming together in a platform, he now is also able to look at how are his peers doing. He's immediately able to look at, okay, in your area there's so and so also out there, and he's been able to do this well, or what, you're actually in the top 5 so far, so you're really doing great. You just keep pushing yourself and you do well. So this is a scenario on how you have data in the back end, you have this analytics engine, and then you're using automation capabilities to sort of bring it to the fore, to the end custodians, and really drive them to do their business, their operations effectively, and in turn drive growth, right? So I think these are the sort of examples now where we see direct impact coming in from growth, by enabling a lot of our people on the ground, who are doing these operations, to do them a lot more effectively.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thanks for that. I have a generic question, right, for the all three of you. We've spoken about how data will start driving automation adoption in the near future, and how people will need to be upskilled and so on and so forth. One definite important aspect with all of this automation adoption and information being widely available is the aspect of how organizations or how businesses are tackling the risks that come with automation. So I'd love to hear from each one of you in terms of what are some of those I mean, the risks could be common across, but then to you, if I could ask, what is that one big risk that you see coming from an automation adoption, and how could you possibly mitigate? So maybe just let's call out the topmost risk for each of you. I'll start with you, Alok.
Okay, I was on mute. Digital transformation is all about the people, right? And one of the risks that I see in a new real world scenario is the, say, for example, the kind of pandemic created a situation when half of the people working remote, half of the people working in person, right? Now, this definitely, in this kind of scenario, the organizations have to manage uh, and reconstruct the work environments and still able to continue their innovation journey, right? So what, for example, how organizations leverage the group-induced creativity, which can be leveraged through social networks or when people work together, right? In an environment of a scattered workforce, that becomes challenging. And companies need to reconstruct how the work is done, decide which employees and which roles are best suited to remote work, and reconfigure and rethink the workplace. So according to me, this is one of the biggest risks that, considering the present context that I see, which organizations have to deal with.
Great. People as one of the key risks. Shankar, would you want to get in next in terms of what would be the top risks that you see for organizations?
Right. So in any digital transformation journey, the way I see it is the organization needs to come together. So the key is really the ownership and accountability that rides with any initiative like this, right? To be successful, it has to have process owner and everybody who's got a stake in it needs to be part of the journey. Many organizations often feel that there is an IT program and let IT run with it, and I go on very with my own world. So that sets a tone for a failure and not necessarily a successful disruption that we all seek to end the journey with. So, but the key takeaway is back to my original point, which is change management. Change management that needs to make sure that there is an understanding of the stakes involved. There are clear accountabilities that are set, and people move with those accountabilities as investments are being made and changes are being made. Technology alone will not help. Along with that, you need people who can embrace it and leverage it and own it. If you don't have that, no program is going to succeed. And that's a big risk for any organization.
Sure. No, absolutely. Change management, definitely, both from a technology standpoint and also from an adoption perspective, and more importantly, change management for the people, because the entire dynamics of the future workforce and the skill sets is going to change. New roles would be created. The entire operating model would change, right? So having a good change management, if you don't have that, it's going to be a pandemic within the organization.
Absolutely.
For sure. Absolutely. Great. Thanks for that. Narendra, your views?
So change management, since Mr. Shankar, you've mentioned, and I would have concurred with that. I think one additional risk I definitely want to add is the whole cyber security ecosystem. The threat of theft that we have, and it is twofold. One, because the whole external threat rapidly keeps evolving, and it's definitely an uneven world because you don't have exposure to what's cooking out there, whereas the hackers, the cyber criminals at all times know the sort of security controls that's coming in the industry, given the nature of how we operate overall, right? As against this, I think a lot of these digital initiatives, automation and everything can sometimes catch the attention, catch the fancy of the business, and security can be looked at as a roadblock or a bottleneck to that journey, right? Which then becomes a very challenging, because more often than not, then you start diluting some of these areas, or there is always a fear that you start cutting corners, So how do you ensure that all your automation offerings are also well embedded with security controls that are in place, and there is a joined up sort of realization and activation from the partner ecosystem and the business ecosystems, one to recognize cybersecurity threat and the necessity for controls, and equally with these whole capabilities that are coming to come with the right desired security controls to be in place. I think that definitely in my mind is a big risk area or a challenge area.
Oh no, absolutely, and I think that possibly is one of the biggest risks that we foresee, right? Because with so many laws coming in place from a data protection perspective, absolutely important for organizations to look at how data security can be kept in place and in check with the adoption of automation. So yeah, I mean, I think it kind of gels well because we spoke about people, process, and technology. And these three areas are the biggest areas that get impacted from an ongoing business operations perspective as well. And automation definitely has a big role to play in this space. And then to top it all off, in terms of if you don't have that right change management, if you don't have that change strategy in place, it is going to go in shambles. You may start, but then you may not be able to sustain. All right. So thanks for those insights. Just possibly, I guess we are on top of time. I just have one last question. Maybe we just take a minute on each of these. Now, this is typically a challenge that I've kind of seen with organizations kind of encounter. There's always this confusion in terms of how they should evolve their tech ecosystem from an automation adoption perspective. Right. So whether do I start with an RPA, do I start with artificial intelligence, or do I start with conversation pods or IoT and so on and so forth. So in possibly just for each one of you to give your insights in terms of what that tech ecosystem should look like for a future business. So who would want to go first? Narendra, how about you take a dig at that?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's really a broad-based sort of question. It's very difficult to say what the tech ecosystem should look like. I definitely think overall organizations need to build tech-stroke digital capabilities in-house big time. If not for doing the hands and legs in terms of being developers, definitely skill sets to be able to identify opportunity areas, drive opportunity areas, adopt opportunity areas, and do value realization. That is the most effective way, in my mind, to driving any sort of digital revolution. On the core tech aspect, I think gradually the industry is shifting from a product sort of ecosystem to more platform as a service model, where you build central vertical horizontal platforms and business capabilities are added on top of it in a very modular microservice sort of architecture, right? So you have automation as a platform, and there can be not just one, maybe a couple or a few more capabilities sitting on top of it. And the way you're designing the platform is, you're building for reuse and you're building for agile delivery, and not trying to introduce a product every time a business use case on automation comes in, right?
Sure.
Similar goes for analytics. You don't end up starting to build products for individual analytics use cases. You'd rather build your analytics engine as a platform and reuse the data, reuse your models to develop more and more business use cases, right? So I think overall, these two aspects, building in-house capabilities and setting up platforms in a microservice architecture, I think are two key areas to drive this.
Great, thank you. Alok, your views on that?
Yeah. So if I have to add my points, so there are two areas to create a strong ecosystem that organizations have to focus on. One, I will focus on how organizations use data. Second is the skills, like that's the people again. So today institutions of all sizes globally are leveraging automation and AI to drive value. And most companies use software to aggregate data and provide findings. But in many instances, that is where the data train ends. So businesses can create value by connecting AI to data platform and use machine learning to exchange information in order to harvest trends and expose data patterns. And these patterns can then be used to create more customer value and increased economic performance. And the other point on the skills, the people that I would like to add is that organizations have to focus on upskilling and the continuous learning. And as I earlier mentioned that the technologies have been changing at a much faster rate than ever. What used to be a trend probably 3 years back is becoming obsolete now. And we don't know what it is going to be 3 years later, right?
Right.
So to future-proof, the organizations have to focus on upskilling to create a strong automation and digital ecosystem. This can ensure that the organization have an agile workforce with high cognitives, the workforce which is quick to adapt to new technologies. So these are the two main areas where the organizations have to focus on to create a stronger ecosystem.
Great, thanks, Alok. Final comments from you, Shankar, in terms of what that ecosystem needs to look like.
Yeah, right. So from where I interact and where I have seen, I think organizations need to focus in building their the skills around their core businesses. So any tech or digital transformation that is directly impacting the business, that skill needs to be built in house. The rest of it can be bought as a service or outsourced. And the reason is it's difficult for some organizations to build that scale because where do you really spend the money? Do you spend it on infrastructure? Do you spend it on people or changing technologies, or do you buy it as a service so that it can fit into your overall business? Again, the piece that I will keep within the company wherever I go is around security. That's something that I will outsource, but everything else is up there for evaluation and put it on the menu as we want it to.
Right.
Or keep. So that's the way I look at it. And that's it. Maybe systems will at least evolve for a lot of mid and sub large companies.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. I just want to say that automation now has the potential to change the daily work activities of everyone, and it will inevitably transform today's business landscape and the future business landscape as well, right? And as aptly pointed out by our wonderful panelists, people, process, technology, effective change management, effective controls in place will ensure that you are in line to adopt automation as one of your key strategies and also succeed in effectively changing the way you work and bring about new ways of working. On that note, I'd like to say thank you for giving us these opportunities, and over to you, Ivan. Thank you.
Sorry. That was a wonderful 60 minutes on automation, business landscape across industry segments, growth, resilience, and operational efficiency. I think it was a beautiful discussion. It was very well structured. All the thoughts were very well articulated, some great insights, and I'm sure the audience has some great takeaways from this discussion. And for that, I'd like to thank Alok Bansal, Shankar V, and Narendra Agrawal for taking time off from their busy schedules and joining us at the Economic Times Intelligent Automation Summit 2021. And this wouldn't have been possible without you, Hari, for those wonderful questions that were well targeted, so that our panel members could articulate their answers to those questions. So thank you for doing a fantastic job of moderating the panel, and we wish you and PwC India the very best going forward.
Thank you, Ivan. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Do stay tuned in, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back on the other side with the second special address of this summit.